So, welcome to this year's edition of Seder Surprises. First year we're doing this on Israel time. Thank you, Shira Greenspan, for helping set this up and for twisting my arm. Didn't take much to set up one for New York time in the afternoon and Israel time in the evening. It is being recorded in case you have friends who would like to watch later. Now, wouldn't it be great if our children anxiously awaited the Seder, were active participants in the Seder, ask questions, answer questions, we're awake the whole time, we're excited, we're engaged? Wouldn't it be great if we ourselves and the adults in the room were the same? So the next 60 to 90 minutes is going to be jam-packed with ideas on how to make your Seders amazing, engaging, exciting, both for our children but also for ourselves and the adults. It takes just a few steps, but you can transform your Seder into a truly memorable experience. It does take a little planning, but it doesn't take much. It does take a little effort, but not much. There's some ideas that were implemented with really only 2 hours before candlelighting. As I was reviewing this, I know at least two of them that were very, very quick ideas that really were good ideas for the Seder. Some do take a lot more planning, and it depends on your level and what you have available to you. Shira was telling me there's a lot now going on uh, in Israel, and so that may throw a wrench into some people's plans, but hopefully we can help out here. Do be forewarned. Once you see the excitement in your kids and your family, you too, just like us, will become addicted to making your seders more exciting. And you'll never look at leaving Egypt the same way again. A friend of mine thought I made this statement. I thought he made the statement. Turns out Yehuda Hanasi made this statement. The lesson that is enjoyed is the lesson that is learned well. Make your Seder fun, make learning fun, and your kids will learn, your kids will enjoy, and your kids will keep going. Now, even Rambam enjoyed Seder Surprises Workshop. Thank you to Rabbi Shayowitz for pointing this out. In Rambam's Hilchot Chametz U'Matzah, he says you need to make changes on this night so the children will see and be motivated to ask, why is this night different from all other nights? And then you can answer, well, this and this happened, this and this took place. So what changes should be made? He should give them roasted seeds and nuts. Rambam was from a Sephardi heritage. The table should be taken away before they eat. Now, I remember learning about this when I was in elementary school. Never saw it. Uh, I don't know if anyone does this. Uh, I've never seen the table taken away. Matzot should be snatched from each other. Now it's a thousand years later from Rambam, and we are still doing that. Uh, and the key here, uchyotze badvarim ha'elu, and things like that. So that gives us license to thou do things at the Seder to make things interesting, to encourage the children to ask questions. Thank you to the Adult Ed Committee of Shari Tefillah, Rinat Yisrael, Beth Aaron. These are local shuls here in Teaneck that have encouraged me along over the years. We've been doing Seder Surprises. I think the first one was 2010 or 2011. Thank you to YPAA of Yavin Academy, one of the local day schools. Special thank you to Shir Shaiwitz, the Rebbitzin in our shul, who's been a sounding board for me all these years for different ideas for Pesach and the Seder. And special thank you to her husband, Rabbi Kenny Shaiwitz, and the local Va'ad for helping take this workshop online in 2020 when COVID hit. We've never gone back to in person because the preference has been from people to be on Zoom. And of course, a special thanks to my wife and the rest of my family who put up with my antics and who've come up with their own over the years. Again, a special thank you to Shira Greenspan for helping me for encouraging me to take this online at a time when you can join in Israel. Thank you for her brilliant ideas and creating great Facebook groups that encourage people to look at the Mu'adim and look at the Parshiot in new ways and to make them exciting and engaging for the kids. Do send me an email. Tell me your name, tell me who you are, tell me how you found out about this. I'll pick an email at random after the workshop to win a special game or prop for the Seder. If you look, you can see the stick hanging across our front doorway. This was the prop that we gave away last year. Mateh Moshe with the acrostic on it, Tetzach Hadash Bachav, the acrostic for the first letter of each of the Makot. Obviously, will be hard to transport that over to Israel if you're in Israel, but we have something special for you too there if you're in Israel and you win the raffle. So no worry. Just before we start, we should also be cognizant that not all of the hostages have been returned. Some have been returned in a way that we would not that is not ideal. And of course, with what's going on and all the recent call-ups, there's certainly going to be people missing at our Seder, and we should keep that in mind. Here in the United States, it's a little bit easier not to have that directly, uh, not to be reminded of that directly, but certainly in Israel, I'm sure it's on everyone's mind. Before we go ahead with all the ideas, these are things, some good guiding principles that in retrospect, my wife and I realized that the things we were doing, the activities we were doing, sort of fell into these good guiding principles. We did not look at these a priori and design activities at the Seder to fit into these categories, but it was only in retrospect when we figured out what worked and what didn't work. Friendly competition is good. So real competition is not. And well, I'll give you an example of those later with the Afikoman. Get the kids invested in the effort. Help them or have them think of ideas. You'll hear ideas that my kids have come up with, and we work together to implement them. Give them a job. They're now invested in this, and we'll make sure that it works. Food is good, hungry is bad. I think that's self-obvious. I don't think that self-explanatory. I don't think that needs to be explained, but you'll see ideas as to how to make sure there's always food around for the kids. Movement is good, stationary is bad. Another, I think, self-explanatory idea. But we try to introduce movement into our Seder just at times when the Seder may be dragging. Less is sometimes more. Focus on the most important, on what the kids will understand. There are parts of the Seder that the kids are not going to be interested in. We say the whole Seder out loud, but we fly through some of those parts that may not be as interesting to the kids. And this, of course, will change over the years. Things that our kids were very excited over when they were 8 years old are very different from what they're interested in now. Interestingly, a year or two ago, our kids wanted to stop at one of the prakim and discuss what they meant, whereas when they were 8 years old, that never would have happened. They were more interested in props on the table. My younger daughter, when she was, I think, around 7 or 8, said, "Loot is good. Goodie bags are a child's best friend. Make sure there's something for the kids to take home." She said that's the best part of a birthday party are the goodie bags. This is a way for them taking something away tangible from the Seder. They may never look at it again, but they're going to remember that they have something, and it's going to help them remember the Seder. Do try these ideas at home. Do not do everything. This is pushing 30 years of ideas that we've done at our Sedarim. Uh, just do a couple, 2 or 3 is enough to turn your Seder into a rocking Seder. Does not take a lot. In fact, you want to save ideas for future years because presumably you will be doing Sedarim for a long time. God willing, Mashiach will come soon and we won't, but until that happens, we presume we'll be doing a Sedarim for many years. Okay, pregame show. When does the Seder really start? So this is much easier to ask when we're doing the live version. I don't know if, but I'll ask the question. Maybe one person can answer. When does the Seder really start? There's the obvious answer. Anyone want to answer? Or I'll just go ahead. Seder, everyone's going to answer. Seder starts at Kaddish because that's the official start for the Seder. But I like to add, maybe it doesn't really start at Kaddish. Maybe it starts earlier. So maybe you're inviting guests over. This is someone's house. This is not our house. This is someone's house in Teaneck. She took one of my ideas and put had signs printed up and placed at the front of her house. So your guests are going to walk up to your house, and already, as they're walking up the front walk, they're going to say, wait a minute, tonight is going to be different from any other Seder that we've been expecting. Okay, they come in your house, maybe on the doorway. There are signs for a garage sale. You're selling your items because you're moving. Maybe the house is for sale. I downloaded these off, I think it was an NCSY site that I downloaded them off of. Uh, we hang these in our front doorway, just as another way of creating interest, even before you sit down at the Seder. Maybe your guests walk in and they see a doorpost covered in a red plastic tablecloth and also a paintbrush hanging on it. Okay, it's pretty obvious what this represents, especially you're coming to this workshop. I'm betting the vast majority of people have already can figure out what that represents. Dam al mashkaf, the blood on the doorpost. But this becomes a little bit more experiential now because so people now, your guests will look at that and say, and your family for that matter, will look at this and say, oh, wait, tonight's going to be different. And this is not your average Seder. Maybe they look the other direction and look into your living room and they see a doorway that has a blue tablecloth with a split down the middle. Okay. Also, you're at this workshop, so it's pretty obvious what that's going to represent. But now your guests see, wait a minute, we're going to be doing things tonight that we weren't expecting. And this Seder is going to be different from what we were originally expecting. Maybe they look in toward your dining room and they see a dining room table that's set already. They see plastic blow up uh, swords that have a snake head on it. Maybe they see wine bottles with wine labels that look a little bit different. Maybe they see little animals, bendy wild animals on the table. Maybe they see points. They see frogs, origami frogs, plush frogs. They can tell this night's going to be a little bit different. Maybe off to the side, they see blocks later on so the kids can build things. We've made origami blocks. Uh, we've made origami blocks so you can make your own, or for that matter, have the kids make these. Spend a couple hours, not this year, Erev Pesach, but Erev Pesach, making these so you can put these on the table. This is an example of the wine label that we made for some of our wine bottles, all with references to Pesach, and mostly, I think, with the number four in there because the four plays a major role in the Seder. We print these out, we've taped them to the wine bottles, and again, just creates uh, more of an interest in the Seder even before Kaddish. I forget to take, I don't always remember to take a picture before candle lighting. So we've skipped a couple years. This is 2019. And you can see as our kids get older, our table has changed. A lot more orderly. We have a plush frog, I'm sorry, a plush sheep on there. We have I found these in one of the local drugstores, a frog bowl where we put our charoset. Someone gave me a frog salt shaker, so that goes on the table. I found on Amazon a plush louse, so I can't say everyone likes that, but I really do, and that goes on our table. Last year, this was our table. Now, a number of years ago, I guess is pushing 10 years ago already, uh, I found online a model of the Mishkan, and we spent a Sunday afternoon with my son's best friend, putting it together. It was fun. We had a nice Sunday afternoon. Very cool learning about the structures in the Mishkan, and put it aside. Haven't really looked at it since until last year when we said, okay, let's put this on the table. And since they're leaving Egypt and going through the desert, and in the desert there's the Mishkan, and the different Shvatim travel around the Mishkan in different on different sides. So we made little tents. You can see little tents here, paper origami tents, where we put the different shvatim and the names of the shvatim on their respective side and the leader of the shvatim. Uh, you can also see Kos Eliyahu, which we'll talk about later. And the paintbrush again is now on the table, and the frog bowls are on the table. You can also see place cards, which we made, which I'll show you more closely later on. I think the price of that Mishkan went up in price. I don't remember it being that much, but I also found a model of the Beit HaMikdash. So of course we were doing the Korban Pesach at the Beit HaMikdash after we were in Eretz Israel. So that's another option if you have Amazon available to you. Now in the background here, you may have seen both this page, this in 2019 and 2024, and if you had seen the years in between, we have a mural. I found a mural online that we hang across the back wall. Again, creating an interest, creating excitement for the Seder. There are others I found online. In general, I've tried in this talk to try to limit how much I put up to order from Amazon because I don't know how available all this will be shipping to Israel and the timing of it. But I've still put a couple up for those people who may have access to Amazon in America and with people traveling. But there are multiple murals you can look, you can find. I found a couple of them. This was another one we had one year. A lot of us, anyone with small kids, more than likely has had one of these pools at one point. So a couple years ago, we pulled ours out and we put one of the ubiquitous blue tablecloths in it and found a basket. I think this for someone gave this to us on Purim for Shalach Manos and put a baby doll in it. Now it's obvious what this is. This is Moshe floating in a basket on the Nile. Uh, Again, your guests walk in the house, they see this already, they know the Seder is gonna be different from all other Seders. And again, you've started your Seder already way before Kaddish. Now you can probably move that up even further. One year we took one of our plush sheep and tied it to the bedpost, to our son's bedpost. Uh, did it about a week before the Chag because traditionally that's when Bnei Israel picked their future korban and put it aside uh, in preparation for Pesach. Thank you, Janet Hode, who lives here in Teaneck, for sending me a picture of hers. And that's another something you can do to push up the Seder even further. A number of years ago, uh, when the kids were younger, we wrote letters to them, one from Moshe, one from Paro, even went overboard and sent one from Datan and Aviram, saying, "Oh, we're from Moshe. We're leaving Egypt soon. We're get ready. God has sent 9 plagues. There's going to be a 10th, and get ready. I'm sure Pharaoh is going to want us out very quickly." And then, of course, there's one from Pharaoh saying, "We don't want you to leave. It's going to be bad for our economy. We want you to stay. I implore you to stay." We sent these letters in the mail, so it's cool for the kids to receive these letters. Of course, they quickly figured out who they were from. Uh, but it was another way to push the excitement of the Seder up several days before the actual Seder. I show these because while they're in English, depending on language in the house, these can easily be written in Hebrew and translated into Hebrew or written brand new in Hebrew. Uh, Something else you can do, if you figure out who your guests are, it's now 3.5 weeks before the Chag. So give each family member a character from the Haggadah or the story to get dressed up as and to reenact that character during the Seder. There's so many to choose from. At one of our Seders, someone picked the beautician, I think he was the hairdresser, in Egypt, and basically played that role throughout the Seder. Uh, but there are lots of people actually in the story, Moshe, Pharaoh, Aaron, Miriam, Yocheved, multiple ones that you can Have your guests. Doesn't take much. Do it yourself costumes, little things, just something to get them into character and therefore into engaged in the Seder. We've used costumes. In fact, at our Seder, every year we put out what we call slave costumes. Basically, we went to a local fabric store and got their odds and ends and turned them into little tunics, cut the corners off, so no tzitzit required. Went to one of the local large chain, uh, what do you call it? We went to Home Depot and got thick rope to act as belts. Went down the local park, found a stick, and that became our Mateh Moshe. And this is a picture of my son dressed in, this is from when he was much, much younger, dressed in the slave costumes. We had that, and we now have one for everyone at the table. We've since gone to Walmart here in the States. They have lots of fabric for fairly inexpensive. We've gotten burlap, so we can also use that, and we've made those into tunics and into slave costumes. Uh, don't force anyone to wear it, but if they want to get into character, they can. Uh, for the parents, this is great for them because it'll go over the kids' clothing, and you know you're going to spill stuff, and this will pick up those spills. In the middle of Magid, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Harani Kaven Shivim Shana. I was like 7 years old. Uh, so we got a beard, and someone puts that on at that point. Pharaoh costume. I keep an eye out for these online periodically during the year. They're not generally that expensive, depending when you catch them. And I'll show you what we did with them, what we did with the Pharaoh costume in a little bit. I like place cards. I think they're fun. I think they create some interest, and they tell your participants your Seder is going to be a little bit different. Last year, we took a Gemara cover and made place cards out of it. Year before, thank you, Yossi Prager, who emailed me, said, I got this papyrus and I don't know what to do with it. Can you think of something to do with it? So I don't want to send papyrus through a laser printer, but I found clear labels at our local office supply store and printed out people's names, but switched the font for hieroglyphics and then put those out at each place setting. And it's became sort of a game. People had to figure out where they were sitting. It's not that hard because if you have a double letter in your name, you can already see where those double letters are, and you can figure out your name. You can figure out how many letters are in your name. And that can give you clues as to whose card that is. The year before, we made a parody off of a Facebook page where you see all the different steps in the Seder down the side and different ads we made, funny little parody ads we made. We've done Eliyahu, a parody off Yahoo page. We've done chariot licenses. We've done baseball cards. Um, we've done a newspaper where in the several weeks before Pesach, we had all the teenagers in that were coming to the Seder go around and interview everyone in their family and write an article about their family, what their family did, what their family members did when they were in Egypt, what their jobs were, why they were excited to leave, uh, things like that, and put together a little newspaper, and then each person got that at 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 their seat. This is our idea for this year. So I've gotten badge holders and lanyards, and this is a preview of what's going to be for this year. Already, a woman in our shul and I were talking over the last two Shabbatot about already an idea for coming years. So hold on, there'll be more coming in future years. So the actual Seder, game on. So when my oldest, I think she was 7 or 8, said, let's do something fun at the Seder. I said, what do you want to do? I don't know. We'll think of something. Well, as we go through the Seder, let's have people vote on each parak or different parakim and whether they represent freedom or slavery. I said, okay, that's nice. Could we do something more hands-on, more tangible? So we figured out we could run around the house, find tongue depressors or popsicle sticks, and we found colored paper and we wrote on one side freedom, on the other side slavery, and basically stapled them to a popsicle stick, all done within less than 2 hours to candlelighting. And then she ran this different prakim during the Seder. She stopped the Seder and asked people to vote, and it would engender some conversation about that parak. Uh, again, in give your kid help have your kids help you create ideas. Give them a job, they're going to make it work. This is one of the best ideas we've had. But I have to thank, I think there are two people in here that really need to be thanked. Joey and Aviva Offenbacher, who are on the on this, if I'm not mistaken. I saw them sign on. So before they made Aliyah, we had lunch with them one Pesach, and we asked them at lunch, so what do you do at the Seder? So we give out points. Kids ask questions, they answer questions, they do something, we give them points. So how do you keep track of them? So the age old in the Orthodox community is to use a book and put a bookmark. So we came home and said, okay, I wanted something more tangible. I'm big into graphics. So I said, let's create Pesach currency. So we created Pesach currency. And anytime that we print these up, these are all PDF'd, we print them up in the days before Pesach, Erev Pesach, we would have the kids cut them out, uh, and then they would get passed out. Each parent would get a cup full of them, and they would get passed out as the kids read something. If they answered a question, they asked a question. Um, just to create excitement, we'd pass them out. This has probably been one of the best ideas. Thank you, Joey and Aviva. Uh, from about age 2 to 3, depending on your kid, and our kids all the way up to age 10 or so, this really lasted. So it was a lot of years that we got out of this. I've heard from people that even as adults, their families still get into this. Ours sort of have grew out of it, but it's a great idea, especially for the younger kids. Again, all PDF'd. Email me. I'm happy to send. A lot of my stuff is PDFs. I'm happy to send whatever you want out. Another year, my oldest is a little bit older. He said, okay, what can we do at the Seder? Now, this is, I think, in the weeks before Purim, actually. She's thinking ahead already. Said, I don't know. What do you want to do? She, of course, doesn't know. So go look online. Go come up with some ideas. So she looks online and she found a website, Baba Ganuz, which I haven't looked at in a long time, although I probably should. I remember it being a very good website with a lot of good educational ideas. And she came up with this one, Bingo for the Seder. Okay, their bingo board wasn't what we had in mind. We wanted something more with a lot more pictures and colors and graphics. So each night in the weeks leading up to Pesach, we'd sit for a couple minutes after dinner and we'd decide, what would go on, what were good things to put on the grid. It's a grid of 25 things. So you got to come up with 20 or 25 squares. So you got to come up with 25 activities or 25 events that happen during the Seder for the kids to uh, cover in order to get 5 in a row or get a bingo. And we worked on this. She's very good with graphics. Once we came up with all the ideas, she took this and ran with it. And I think actually on PowerPoint of all things, she put this together and we had it laminated and had the younger kids cut them out before the Erev Pesach. And this worked. This was one of our ideas that year for Pesach. We put bowls of chocolate chips on the side. We put jelly rings. My wife wanted a healthier alternative, so we had carrot slices out on the table. You can put banana slices. You can put all these different things out. The kids can use them to cover a box when they get to it. It's food on the table, so they can very easily, secretly or not so secretly, take something to eat along the way, which is part of our purpose. There's activity on here. You have to get up. You have to move around a little bit for some of the activities here, for some of the boxes. The kids are invested. My oldest was certainly invested. The younger kids were cutting it out, so they had a job, gave us an hour or two to do other things while they were working on it. Uh, all around an excellent idea. Again, these are PDF'd. Happy to share with anyone who wants. A couple years ago, I'd heard that Rav Teitz in Elizabeth, New Jersey, uses bananas for karpas. When I was growing up, we used a sprig of parsley dipped in salt water. My wife tells me I think that they used sliced a potato. Uh, but this certainly sounded more interesting and certainly was a way to get the kids to ask questions about it. Bananas are adama. We put out chocolate sauce on the table. Uh, we also put salt water for the adults. Anyone who wanted to dip in salt water, it was available. Bananas have a lot more sugar in them, a lot more filling than parsley. Chocolate sauce has some sugar in it, actually has some caffeine in it, so not necessarily such a bad thing for one night, for a night that's gonna run pretty late and with young kids. Again, food is good, hungry is bad. This led to this. It also leads them to ask questions about what are you doing? Because we're not used to bananas here. My son and I are at a bar mitzvah at our shul a couple of years ago. This is 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And Howie Coffin and Micha Coffin come up to us and they say, "Oh, we heard about you. We've listened to your talk. Let us tell you what we do for Karpas." And this is a question I tend to ask lots of people in this month, people I'm meeting. What do you do for Karpas? Because I'm looking for new ideas. And they said, we make French fries and we dip them in ketchup. French fries are potatoes, certainly common custom for karpas, and ketchup has salt and vinegar in it, also common, and they're dipping. My son and I look at each other, our eyes open wide, our jaws drop, and we say, now we know what we're doing this year. Uh, and that's what we did. I think did this 2 years ago for this. 3 years ago, I forget exactly when. Uh, we also, because I like to do stuff with graphics, found these the envelopes or the holders, the French fry holders that you get at restaurants. Found some online. I'm sure you can go to a restaurant supply store or I'm sure even some restaurants. Obviously, you want them either brand new or a restaurant that's already kasher Pesach may even sell them to you. And we stuck our French fries in them. I'm not sure that this will translate well in totally in Israel because there's no Five Guys restaurant in Israel. Uh, but at least the rest may resonate, where we took the parak with the five Rabbanim that meet until dawn in Bnei Brak, and we made a label out of that. And this is how we passed around the French fries, our karpas, that year. Met a gentleman, Chaim Katina, who told me he has a lot of kids at his Seder and he needs to do things extra interesting for them. So at Karpas, he stops the Seder and brings everyone in the kitchen where they've already, I presume, have grated up potatoes and they make latkes right there on the spot. Can't do this if Pesach falls on Shabbat, if the Seder falls on Shabbat, but you certainly can do this when it's Yom Tov. They fry up latkes right there on the spot and dip them. Again, I said, oh my gosh, this is what an amazing idea, and that's what we did last year. Other things, so getting into the core of Magid now. Um, so you can see a lot of stuff for younger kids, but this is something we did for older kids, for teens, and even young adults. I wish I had a picture of it, but I had to sort of recreate this because I don't think I ever took a picture of what we actually hung. We took the pasuk, we got to Levincha, we printed out word by word or phrase by phrase, and we hung it around the room where we were having our Seder. And we announced to the teen that was with us at that first year we did it. We had one teenager, and all the rest were younger kids. And we said, "You're welcome to join in on the rest, but we recognize that you may not get into what we're doing for all the younger kids. But for you in particular, we've hung the pasuk around the Seder, and as we go through Magid, your role, your job, your mission is to figure out what word or what phrase in this pasuk each parak in Magid relates to. So as an example, Vigadata, and you should tell. So who should tell? So there's the parak, even if we're all rich and we're all learned, we're all wise, we still need to tell the story of the Yetzias Mitzrayim. Levincha is obvious. The Arba Banim. Bayomahu on what day? So maybe it was from Rosh Chodesh. Maybe Olam Hazeh, not Olam Haba. Maybe both Hazeh and Olam Haba. Lemor, tell the story. Irami Oved Avi and so forth. Ba'avor Zeh gets flipped. Zeh Ba'avor, and that brings us to Rabban Gamliel. These are the things that we are doing. Asa Hashem. What did Hashem do? So that's Dayenu and the parak after Dayenu, which basically repeats Dayenu. All the things that Hashem has done for us. Li has done for me. B'chol dor v'dor chayav adam lirot et asmo ki ilu hu yatsa mitzrayim. Every generation, every person has to look at them as if they themselves left Egypt. And then b'tseisi mitzrayim, when I left Egypt. And that leads into Hallel, b'tseit Yisrael mitzrayim. And this is taken from the introduction to the Mabim Haggadah, my personal favorite. And you can use this with older kids, with adults, as you go around the table. As you go through Magid, you can say what word in the pasuk does this parak relate to? Another way of creating some engagement and also using this as a learning tool as for the Seder. Number of years ago, we were in Denver for the Seder, and our friends, when they come to Manishtana, they go around the table and say Manishtana in multiple languages. I think that year was Hebrew, Yiddish, Russian, Spanish, English. I came back and said, "Oh, let me help them out." And this was the beginnings of Google Translate. But of course, as I'm starting to use Google Translate, I find this book put together by Murray Spiegel and Ricky Stein, where they've connected with native language native speakers of multiple languages from around the world and have them translate Manishtana into their language. One of our close friends, his daughter, is a Tamil speaker, which is a South Indian language, and she's in this book. Fascinating book, fantastic book. We do it every year. One year, as we're passing around the table, it happens to fall open to Klingon, which, for anyone who knows, that's a Star Trek, made up Star Trek language, very guttural, very strong language. Happens to open up in on the plate of one of our friends who's a big Trekkie, and he belts out Manishtana in Klingon, and we're all rolling on the floor. Really set the mood for the rest of the Seder. The makot are ripe for props. You can do a lot with them. You don't need to do a lot with them. I think first year, we just took a can of cranberry sauce, poured it in a bowl, and left that on the table. And people would ask, "Oh, what is that? What's that for?" Another year, I put red Jello. I made red Jello and put cups of it at each person's plate. A couple years ago, I found cups that change color when you put something cold in them. So they're normally sort of this whitish, pinkish color, but they turn a deep red when you put when you put something cold in them. So ice water. So these are things that you can use to represent dam at the table. We could put out different cups, and some people at the table would be Mitzrim, and their cup would turn to dam, and other people would be Yisraelim, and their cups would stay clear with water. Frogs, we've ordered online from various websites, little plastic frogs. You can find them in party stores also. I don't know why, but they seem to be big for parties. I don't know what's shippable to Israel. So we've also done origami frogs. There's a book out there that we have somewhere in our basement, Jewish Origami. And I don't know that this was taken from that book, but there are multiple DIY videos on how to make origami frogs, something else you can put out on your table. We've collected plush frogs, all the stuffed frogs that we collected at various birthday parties and various events that our kids have gone to. And we put those on the table. Kinim, Tam Sfardea, Kinim. Kinim was always tough because wasn't sure how to represent that. And then I'm in the supermarket and I see ice cream sprinkles and say, aha, poured them into a bowl. That became our representation for kinim. Our friends in Denver took confetti, sprinkled that around the table, and it came time for kinim. A couple years ago, I found this plush louse online, and again, I like putting that out. Dam Svardea Kinim Arov. So Arov, we've over the years we've collected lots of plush animals and we put those around. Our kids used to have a Noah's Ark model, and we took the animals from that and put them around. When you're in different stores, I don't know in Israel, but certainly in America, different stores like Target and Walmart will have these things on clearance periodically, and you can pick up some of these animals. Oriental Trading, which is an online website. We got those bendable animals from. We put those out on the table. Um, Dever, Damsvarde Kingdom Arov Dever. We push them over. We knock them off the table. That's something that those are some of the things we do. Shrin. We've taken marshmallows, you bite off an end, and you stick it onto your face. Uh, we've done bubble wrap. You can cut those into little strips and put double back tape on them. And that can become shrin or boils. Someone offered to me a couple years ago a suggestion to go to an office supply store and get circular red labels, and you can stick those on people's face. Dam Sfardea Kinim Arav Dever Shrin Barad. Hail. So hail, we've gone to sporting goods supply store. We got a bunch of ping pong balls. Those can get carefully thrown around the table. Marshmallows work for this also. I forget it was last year, the year before. I got extra set of ice cube trays and put uh, slices of orange into each one, and that became barad, a representation of barad. And again, a reference to the way it's mentioned in the Torah that there were fire and ice together. Um, that was one of the ways we did it. Uh, I'll fast forward just for a second and come back to Arba. So last year, or a couple years ago, I one of our neighbors up the street was throwing away a little basketball hoop, kids' basketball hoop. Said, I'm not sure exactly what, but I think I'll be able to use this at one point for Pesach. Remember, everything, whenever you see something, look at it through the lens of Pesach and you'll come up with great ideas. And so I took it home, stuck it in the back in our garage and didn't touch it. And then last year we pulled it out, found AstroTurf to put underneath it to represent the crops. And we found wiffle balls and stuck red crepe paper through them to represent fire and ice. And we held a barad contest. You can put little pieces of tape along the way, so the kids know where to stand and see how many they can get in, how many baskets they can get. Let's back up to Arbe Locust. So again, online sites and party stores will have lots of these little insects that for some reason kids like to play with, and sell them in bulk. And we got them in bulk. We picked out all the ones that sort of could be imagined into locusts and put them out on the table. Now, when the kids were young, we would throw some of the stuff, the light stuff, around the table. Certainly not the ice cubes, but the ping pong balls, marshmallows. And one year, one of the insects landed in the wine glass of one of my oldest daughter's best friends. And they're, oh no, what did you do, Abba? What did you do? And I said, wait a minute, this is perfect. This is exactly what I meant to happen. Of course not. It was all by chance. But you can take any moment and turn it into a teaching moment. Take anything and turn it into a teaching moment. I turned to them and said, this is perfect. What part of the story does this remind you of? I'm like, what? We don't remember. I said, and they're like, it's not part of anything in Mitzrayim. I said, go back in the story. And they finally realized, oh, wait, Yosef with the butler, and a fly lands in Pharaoh's cup. So you can take anything that happens, turn that into a teaching moment. Choshech, we put out sunglasses for people to put on and sort of as a representation of Choshech. You've seen already the Dam al Mashkof that we put up. It's a basically red plastic tablecloth. You can see the tape that we tape it to our wall. Last year we put up a paintbrush, figuring let's add to this because that's what Bnei Israel did. They painted the blood onto the wall. Um, but for years we really struggled with what to do for Makap Chorot because I didn't want to make it creepy. People have suggested to me get at Halloween time get little toy coffins or get little skeletons. I'm like, I don't know that I like that. A little creepy, and also I didn't really feel like we should trivialize the death of the Egyptians because we have our own tradition that we say Hallel, but at the same time, Hashem is upset that his own creatures are being destroyed and are dying. So we do have that tradition that we want to be cognizant of people dying. So I struggled for years what to do with this. One the friend that I mentioned before who's put together the book, The 300 Ways to Say Manishtana, told me that at his Seder, when he had all adults, he put pictures of each person that he knew was coming, put pictures of each person around the table, and figure out who was a Bechor, who was a firstborn, and put an X through their face. Comes time for the Seder, the guests arrive, they can figure out where they're sitting by their pictures, but they don't really understand why some people have X's through their faces. Um, until it comes time for the makot. And then it becomes painfully, obviously clear why some people have an X through their face. And now it highlights to them how many of us would have been affected had we lived through Makat B'chorot, or had we been affected by Makat B'chorot, and how thankful Bnei Israel must have been that they were not affected. Uh, for the kids who came through COVID, you can use COVID and how devastating it was just a short 5 years ago. Now it's fairly benign. Uh, but even how devastating it was, even just a short 5 years ago, and even if we knew lots of people that died, but even if you didn't know people that got very sick or that died, certainly a lot of people went into isolation, went into quarantine. I was sick that year for Seder. I had to sit way down at one end of the table. My kids actually ran the Seder that year. That was real nachas to see the kids running the Seder. But we use that as a way to say how devastating the plagues must have been in Egypt and how thankful Bnei Israel must have been that they were not affected. So those are ways that we can sort of bring this in a way that's not creepy, but also respectful and doesn't trivialize the death of the Egyptians. Okay, at this part of the Seder, we stop our Seder. We have everyone, kids, adults, everyone get up and we get to move away from the table. I don't know if you can see the mouse, but our table's off here to the right, out of view. We walk through the hallway, past Damal Mashkov, and into another room, and then we walk through this doorway that has a blue tablecloth across it. We are doing Kriyat Yam Suf, an experiential Kriyat Yam Suf. And that's what we do every year. Everyone gets up. Now everyone's re-energized to finish up, to go through the rest of Magid. But you want to keep your ideas fresh. So with each year, we've added to this. Uh, one year after this, we found a stick in local park. You've seen one example of this already, and we cleaned it up and we wrote the Tzach Hadash B'Chav on it because again, traditionally the acronym was on Moshe's Mate Moshe. And we have one of the kids at the Seder, lead us through the Yam Suf and then back to the table. And he or she splits the Yam Suf with this stick. Again, send me an email, tell me who you are, tell me your name. And in Israel, you're probably not going to get Mate Moshe, but we'll at least if you win the raffle, we'll get you another game or prop for the Seder. Another year, we printed out Az Yashir. And now as we walk through the house, through the Yam Suf, we sing Az Yashir because that's what the Bnei Israel sang as they're crossing the Yam Suf. I showed you the pyro costume before. So that year I found this pyro costume And during the part of Magid leading up to the Makot, I steal away, run to another room, quick change into the costume of Paro, and as I hear the table going through the Makot, as they finish the Makot, I run in, I storm into the room, and I yell at everyone to get up and get out. You have to get out of Egypt. Run. I want you to cross the Red Sea, cross the Yam Suf, and basically hurry them out through the Yam Suf, and then they return to the table. On the return to the table, so one year our kids said, what can we do? We do something. So we got another one of those ubiquitous blue plastic tablecloths, and we printed out from internet, from Google Images, pictures of sea creatures, and had them color them in. They were young enough at that point. They were still interested in coloring, and we taped them to this tablecloth, and we hung that on the wall leading back to the dining room. Uh, and that I think that was around the time of Finding Nemo, the movie, and you can see a Nemo hanging there. Uh, we're walking through the Amsuf, and this also is a representation of traditionally there were walls of water, Miminam, Mismalam, to the right and to the left. And that became a representation of that. Thank you, Yehudit Robinson, who I think is on this. I thought I saw her name, but I may be mistaken. She sent me a picture of what her kids did and really did it on both sides. So thank you for sending me that. Now, one year, on the way back to the dining room table, we've now repurposed that pool where we had Moshe in a basket floating on the Nile. We've repurposed it in the middle of the Seder to become something else. And it's water with a palm tree next to it. So we stop the crew walking back to the table and we turn to the teenagers and say, okay, what's next? What's this for? They're all looking at me like, what are you talking about? So, well, the story doesn't end with Kriyat Yamsuf. The story goes on. We got another 40 years in the desert. We enter Eretz Yisrael. What happens after Yamsuf? In fact, what happens right after Yamsuf? Kriyat Yamsuf. Finally, one of them says, "Oh, wait, Marah." They get to Marah. They have no water. It's bitter water. And I said, what does Hashem?" They complain. What does Hashem tell Moshe to do? Tells them to take a tree and cut it down and throw it into the water, and the water becomes sweet and potable. So we had a blow up palm tree, which we then had one of the kids topple over into the pool. You can take anything and turn it into a teaching moment. And with that, we allowed them back to the table and we resumed Magid. Last 2 years, as our kids have gotten older and as our guests have been older, uh, we've hung the names of the places, or some of the places that Bnei Israel stopped during their 40 years in the desert, or as they're leaving Egypt, and then later their 40 years in the desert. Uh, and a week or two before the Chag, I email everyone and say, your job, and I give them each one place name. I said, your job is to come up with a one-liner, what happened there. This is one of the places in the desert where Bnei Israel stopped. What happened there? We want you to be prepared with a one-liner. I don't want a whole essay. I don't want a whole paper. I just want a one-liner. You can ask anybody. You can ask your dad, your mom. You can Google it. You can ask the rabbi. You can ask the guy in shul that everyone knows everything. You just can't ask me. You can ask anyone else. And during the Seder, we're gonna ask you what happened at those places. So as we go through Kriyat Yamsuf and we come back to the table on our wall in the hallway, we've hung these things and they're easy. You don't have to order this. This is just a file to be printed out and taped up on the wall. And we stopped everyone and they each gave a one-liner about what happened at that place. So hopefully they've certainly learned what happened at their one place, and hopefully some of what happened at some of the other places has also stuck with them. As an in-joke, that's our bathroom door in our hallway. And I thought it was very funny to put some special place names, which are real places from B'nai Israel's travels, on our bathroom door. Don't let them be hungry. we've already had ideas as to how to keep the kids with food, keep them from getting hungry. I think it's very important to have food available for them during the Seder, during Magid. There's a tradition not to eat af between Karpas and Maro. That may be fine for adults. Even that, I would argue, is not shouldn't be so strict. But certainly for the kids, I think we need to be liberal here. The bingo boards are one way. We make sure we have bowls of charoset out on the table for everyone to take if they want. My wife keeps an eye out for anyone who's dragging during the Seder, and we'll bring them out a bowl of matzo ball soup. We've talked about banana slices and chocolate syrup. We've talked about latkes and French fries, all good things to keep y your children, your guests, and even you going through your Seder. We haven't done this in a couple years, but we had little kids. We collected all the books from around the house that had anything to do with Pesach. We put them in another room where the kids could hang out uh, when they were tired, when they wanted a break from all the activity at the Seder table. They could sit there and they could read something about Pesach. I even had thoughts about getting some of those play tents that are sold, uh, and hanging pictures of clouds or the Ananei Kavod or pillars of fire in the top of these tents. The kids can hang out in them, and again, be an educational experience to teach them something about the story on their kavod and the pillars of fire that guided and protected Bnei Israel during their time in the desert. Uh, we thank you, Elion Topolowski, son of one of my cousins. He and I came up with an idea to we got little boxes and put out a box at everyone's place with random objects found around the house. And if we saw that the Seder was sort of dragging, we turn to someone and say, okay, open your box and tell us, pick out something and tell us why you brought that with you when you left Egypt. So in this one, there's a little game piece. So you could say, well, we knew there would be downtime. We want games for the kids to play. Bow tie, we were heading toward Har Sinai. We wanted to look our best. We had little Divrei Torah pre-printed, so you could come up with your own Divrei Torah, or someone who couldn't come up with one or couldn't think of one had one already ready to go for them. We made little fun labels related to Yetzias Mitzrayim, and here's a parody off a FedEx label. Uh, Thank you, Janet Hode, for showing me what she did with these, and she turned them into moving boxes and put at the head of her table. I think this is just brilliant. I love this idea. One year, one of our guests, whose job it was to bring charoset, brought multiple charosets to the table. One idea I've had, and hopefully maybe this year, we'll put together a charoset bar of different charosets from different communities. Something fun to have at the table, something fun for the kids also to learn about, that there are different traditions, and all within Bnei Israel, we have different communities that do things all the same. We all do the same thing, but maybe in slightly different ways, and be fun to learn about other communities. Older kids. So we've done a lot for the younger kids, but the older kids are a little bit tougher. They're not going to be into the props. Most are not going to be into the props and throwing stuff around the table. So we've come up with other things for them. We've come up with brain teasers. We call this one Passover math. 4 equals N of C of wine, so that's easy. 4 equals number of cups of wine. 10 equal number of P and E, number of plagues in Egypt. You can come up with any number of them. Echad miodea gives you, is it 13 right there? Uh, these are easy to translate into Hebrew if you want to have them as a Hebrew version, depending on your kids. A couple years ago, this visual, symbolic, algebraic version was popular. People were doing these, and I made one for Pesach, and basically a simple algebra problem uh, that you can let the kids sit there and figure out. They can do it during the Seder, they can do it later, you can have it out during lunch or at another meal during the Chag. We've made word searches for the kids to do. This is basically English version of Arami Oved Avi, but it can easily be done in Hebrew if you want. If it'll take it 15 minutes to make on graph paper, fairly straightforward to do. There's a website, Simchat Yechiel. I think they're based out of Beit Shemesh, if I'm not mistaken, and they have a lot of different games for the different Chagim during the year. They have a taboo game up there for Pesach. So already PDF'd, ready to print, ready to go. And we didn't do this during our Seder. Our Seders are busy and we want to keep it moving, but we played this over lunch during the Chag. There are maze generators online that you can make a maze out of. We overlaid a maze on top of a picture of matzah. Uh, we've made word games. Um, so this one we call Dayenu. So all these clues relate to a word that has the sound die in it. So number one, in Bavel, they added water to their wine. Dilute. Ancient animals. Dinosaur. Uh, you can do so there we have multiples of these. I played these with the non-Jewish nurses in the hospital as I was beta testing it, and they had a grand time with it. Uh, didn't get the Jewish references, but they got everything else and had a great time with it. My son came up with this, looked in the dictionary, found Passover, took the first three letters, and took all these words that start with PAS and created clues around them for you to guess. So unleavened holidays, obviously Passover. Intense emotion, I think, was passion. From one place to another is passage, and on and on. Uh, you can do this with maror, you can do this with matzah, uh, and I'm sure you can do this in Hebrew also. Sarah Kapitnikoff has amazing stuff for all through the year on her website, That Jewish Moment. She has a number of escape rooms online that she's created for different Hagim. And this is what for? This is a game that was popular in some of the local newspapers for a while. And she created one for Pesach, where there's a grid of 16 squares, four 16 words, of which there are four sets of four. And the object is to figure out which four words relate to each other and why. And can you come up with four sets of these? Another year when our kids were much younger, but also good for an older crew. We wrote out in English a entry into Bat Paro's diary, talking about her experience as Egypt is hit with the plagues and as Bnei Israel is leaving Mitzrayim. Translated it into hieroglyphics just by changing the font, and we gave him a key. To make it more interesting, we aged the paper in coffee and burnt the edges a little bit with a match or a candle, uh, and gave that to them to solve. Told them that a local museum found this in their archives and they were looking for help for translation. Again, something to do with kids as they're getting older, give them something to think about. This is a brain teaser, a puzzle I came up with a number of years ago. It's a takeoff of a game from a puzzle magazine years ago. So in this case, these are many of the places that Bnei Israel stopped along the way from Egypt to Eretz Israel, and the object is to get through all 23 of them with only stopping at each one once. And there is an answer to do this, and the kids can spend some time going through this. May be right for some kids, won't be right for other kids. But for those kids that want a challenge like this is going to keep them going. Afikoman fun. We've done a number of things for Afikoman. We mentioned before, friendly competition is good. Not friendly competition is not good. Real competition is not good. So when we first started doing Seders, we put out one afikoman, and that was it. One kid found it, and then after that, we'd hear crying, "Oh my God, not fair! He got to find it. He or she found it. We don't have anything to find." And after a couple years of this, we said enough. So we put out one afikoman for each kid. We gathered all those little felt envelopes that they would make in school for afikoman holders, and we put one out for each kid, and they had to find one. That at least took the pressure off for a couple years. But then, as the kids got older, I said, this is too easy for us. We want something more challenging. So we came up with something more challenging. So I called this one tickets, just as uh, uh, for lack of a better term, where we print out. You can see these are 8 of the 14 steps. So we do all 14 steps of the Seder. We print it out on one side, and on the other side, we put a clue. And we put all 14 together, it spelled it inside matzah box. So we put the afikoman inside a matzah box that was hanging out near the Seder table, kind of hiding in plain view, so to speak. We cut all these up. They all each got cut up. 14 of them spread around the house, and the kids had to find all 14. And there are 14 of them, so they all have to work together, and they all now have a role in finding them and bringing them together. How do they go in order? How do you figure out the clue on the back side? Well, you know the order because Kadesh Yachatz Karpas Yachatz, you know the order. So you just turn the tickets over, and you can then read the clue on the back side. A couple years ago, my younger daughter took a picture of, I think this is one of our bookshelves, turned it into a jigsaw puzzle, gave that to the other kids at the table. They had to put it together, find the bookshelf where there was another envelope with a jigsaw puzzle in it. This was a picture of a dollhouse we had in our house. Thank you. I think we got this from also someone who's on this Zoom right now. Uh, at the dollhouse, they found another jigsaw puzzle, which then led them back to the Seder table. And underneath the Seder table was an Amazon bag, open, and had the afikoman hid into it. By the way, amazing place to put the afikoman. As soon as you break that matzah, you wrap it up. It's in your lap. You're trying to figure out what to do with it. Just slide it into this bag, which you should pre-tape to the bottom of your table. Goes in. You no longer have to think about someone taking it from you. You no longer have to worry about where it's going to be. Do you have to walk through the house to hide it? It's there. It's hidden already. Um, Last year we had multiple groups. We had some. We had some freshmen in college, freshmen and sophomores in college who were taking chemistry, and you'll see an example of what we did for them. My son-in-law had just graduated studying physics, so we put together an alphabet made of physics equations. E equals mc squared is an obvious one. And so we created a clue with physics equations, gave him the key, otherwise it would be way too hard. Uh, and then he and my daughter had to figure this out to figure out where the clue was. I think the clue, if I remember, is gravity is 9.86 meters per second. So that's G. Oops. E equals mc squared is E. Distance over speed is time. So get. Area is pi r squared. Get A. And I think it worked out to be get a towel. And I forget what the rest of the clue was. So they had to find where we kept our towels, and their afikoman was hidden among towels. Uh, we had another group at the table, uh, and we took one of our Haggadahs. I forget if one of them was using it or it was just on the table, and we circled letters in the beginning of benching, and that became the clue. So in this case, it was behind the lighthouse, which on our mantelpiece over a fireplace, our oldest daughter had painted the picture in camp years and years and years ago of a lighthouse, and we hid an afikoman behind that. Uh, Another way, easy, very quick way to create a clue and create some challenge for the kids to find the afikoman. When the kids were in ninth grade, they were learning biology. We had Afikoman Hunt based around tRNA codons, uh, and the alphabet that makes up that you can use to uh, uh, call different amino acids. When they were in 10th grade taking chemistry, we had one based around the periodic chart. We reused this last year when they were freshmen in college taking freshman chemistry. Uh, I now have two taking biology, so we're probably going to reuse the tRNA ones for them. We one year my daughter was learning sign language, so we made one in sign language. This one we took a font, basically wrote a clue out, and you can turn this into a graphic, and you can squeeze the font, and extend it in other ways, and it becomes basically illegible when you look at it face on. If you turn the page on its side, you can then read the clue, and that was the clue we put out on the table. We made them in Braille, and they had to figure out what it was. Uh, you have to make sure you have the key for them. So in our case, I think one of our dictionaries had the key, but you have to have printed out a key for them just to make sure they get it. This is something that if you hold red uh, cellophane paper in front of it, the clue pops out at you in blue. Uh, and the goal was to get people to look at it through one of the wine glasses. So if you got grape juice with the right color, it would cause filter out the red and cause the blue clue to pop forward. You can get jigsaw puzzle. You can make a jigsaw puzzle. In our case, we bought a simple jigsaw puzzle online, wrote a clue on it, and passed out the 9 pieces around the house, and the kids had to find them and bring them together and figure out the clue. One year we got a toolbox and found a little thing that you can put multiple locks, lock the toolbox with multiple locks, and each lock had a clue, and we passed out each a clue to each family that was at the table, and each family had to figure out the combination to that lock, and working together, they could open up the box that housed the afikoman. Not going to tell you what we're doing this year, other than sort of regrouping for some of the kids uh, on the chemistry and the biology, but we're already thinking of something else to do. A couple years ago, I heard about something called a Pythagorean cup. And if you remember, all of us as kids, our parents would like touch the table when it came to Safun and when it came to Eliyahu, when it came to Shvach Hamatcha and Eliyahu's cup, we'd push the table, shake the cup of wine a little bit. So we said, Pythagorean cup. Pythagorean cup is if you fill it part way, it doesn't drain, but if you fill it all the way up to the top, it will drain. So we found a plan for one online, and we had it 3D printed. Uh, and easy. I'm sure there are lots of places to 3D print. Lots of people have 3D printers. Some of the schools have 3D printers. This is something that can now be done, and it's a fun way, again, to create excitement at the table and to keep the excitement going long into the night, because now we're talking after benching, going into hollow. Not for the Seder per se, but for other meals during the Chag. So everyone knows on Rosh Hashanah we have simanim. They put a fish head out. Don't be like the head. Don't be like the tail. Uh, Apples and honey. You should have a sweet year. So we made simanim. We've sort of gathered all the dad jokes that we've been holding on to for years and made simanim out of them. So shamir sounds like shamor. So shamir is dill. So we passed out sprigs of dill. We made with tomatoes and with apricots, a whole bunch of them, whole booklet full of them, and we passed it out. Had gone to the supermarket, got little bits of all these things, and passed them out before lunch. One of the days of the Chag, and we had a simanim tasting before lunch. Haggadahs, there are new Haggadahs. This is not so new anymore. This is a couple years old. Uh, Graphic novel Haggadah. Uh, Really, really good. Uh, I like the graphics are amazing. The nuances that Jordan Gorfinkel and Ezra Tzadok put into the graphics to me blow my mind away. Uh, the nuances and how they portray the different characters and different people within the Haggadah to me is amazing. They have one where we would still be slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt had we not been brought out of Egypt. So they have a picture of an Egyptian with the Egyptian headdress being a taskmaster over a whole room of Jews being computer programmers. Way of showing even we'd still be slaves even till today. The Arba Banim, first of all, are not all Banim, some are Banot. Uh, he introduces uh, all different ethnic communities into this. So this is not your average white bread Haggadah. Uh, and he takes the Rasha, and the Rasha is not Rasha. Rasha is just a kid who's in a bad mood, who then goes to his room, calms down, and comes back. I think that's amazing because it's a way of showing that just as we say, we invite the Rasha back. The Rasha is still part of the family. We may not agree with him, but we still invite him to the Seder, and he's still at the Seder with us. There may be kids who at times act like Rasha, sometimes act like Shenu Yodei L'Shol, sometimes act like the Chacham. And as my younger daughter said, we can all at one point or another be each of the Arba Banim. Talking about dad jokes, Martin Bodek has gathered 650, I don't remember how many, dad jokes into a Haggadah, and with each section has put different dad jokes and different puns uh, that relate to that section of the Haggadah. I know this is not going to be for everybody. I personally am love this, and my son and I, as after we got it, we're going through it, and we're just rolling on the floor. We're going to have a blast with this one. Last year he had one written, translated in the style of Shakespeare. My wife's a big Shakespeare fan, and she really got into it. Here's another one translated into with references to Star Wars if you're a Star Wars fan. Uh, Shira Greenspan, if you're still here, I hope you're still on with us. Uh, Shira put together is an illustrator for Haggadah, recommended. And there's a picture of that Haggadah. We've gone through the Seder. Chag's not over. Everyone's gone to sleep. But one of our neighbors one year, it's about 4 or 5 years ago, we wake up in the morning and we see a sticker on our door. Sorry, I missed you. And we're chutz la'aretz. So it said, sorry, I missed you. We'll try again tomorrow. We're like, who put this up? And all the kids are trying to figure out who put this up. They're all blaming me because, of course, my reputation with Pesach. And I'm like, shoot, I wish I had thought of this. No, thank you, Stacy Lancy, for coming up with this idea. Second night, or second morning, she goes around before anyone is awake and she puts up a second sticker. Sorry, missed you. Again, see you next year in Yerushalayim. So I've changed this because we're now this workshop is for Ba'aretz, so only one day Chag, one Seder. So we've changed it for that. But again, another very cool thing you can do for your own family: stick on the front door, or stick on your neighbor's doors, stick on your friends' doors. Uh, and just a way of creating excitement around the Chag. Again, PDF, easy to send. You just print out and cut out. 2 years ago, Stacy and her son, I show up at home, I come home from work, Erev Pesach, and this is on our doorstep. I'm like, okay, we must have ordered something. I look a little bit more closely, and clearly this is a gag. Uh, but thank you, Stacy Lancy, for coming up with this. Now, a number of years ago, my son and I had come up with receipts for Chagadya, and where Dad got it from the Burlington Goat Factory, which is a well-known clothing store here in America. And we made receipts for that for two zuzim, uh, and we taped that to the box. Can't send you a box. I can certainly send you the receipts. 2 years ago, we said, let's have a little bit more fun with this. So at lunch, for lunch, and even for dinner at the Seder, we made different ice creams, parv ice creams, or sorbets with funny Pesach names. Adam and Eve's apple and cinnamon sorbet. Noah, this is my favorite. Noah's floating house of pears sorbet. They're all English puns. Here, depending on your Hebrew, make do them in Hebrew. Rocky Road out of Mitzrayim. Banana split the Red Sea, and we came up with different ice creams to serve for dessert. Uh, you can make parv ice cream with or without a blender, with or without uh, an ice cream machine. So this is doable even without the ice cream machine. Two Thanksgivings ago, we're at our family Thanksgiving and at our sister-in-law and brother-in-law's, and I'm talking with our nephew and find out I think he's in third grade, fourth grade. I apologize if I got the age wrong. And I find out he's a hot sauce fan, just like I am. So we start talking about, oh, let's make hot sauce for Pesach. So we made hot sauce. We got a recipe online. We got peppers. We boiled them. We blended them, and we made hot sauce for Pesach. This past year at Thanksgiving, we said, can we do this one step further? Can we come up with a name for our hot sauce that relates to Pesach? And this is what we came up with. Hot as hail hot sauce. So we're making labels and we're going to have that as our hot sauce for Pesach. These are great websites. I don't know how much ships to Israel from Oriental Trading or Rhode Island Novelty. These are two websites that have a lot of props and little things, little gifts, and things to you can use at the Seder. I don't know how well they ship to Israel, but certainly if you have family or friends in America and you'll have someone traveling, you can ship to America and ship to Israel. Seders for You is a website. Murray Spiegel, who has the book, The 300 Ways to Say Manishtana, that's his website. You can get his book on there. You can get it at various bookstores, at least here in America. I don't know what's in Israel. But he also has, if you're into themed seders, he has a ton of themed seders that his wife and he have come up with. He also has a ton of different ideas, including some that we've come up with, and he put on his website for fun things to do at the Seder. Simchat Yechiel, we mentioned, is a website that has the Pesach taboo, but they also have for other Chagim during the year. They have different games that you can use and play. Uh, Shira Greenspan, thank you for creating these two fantastic Facebook pages, Kef im Mo'adeh Hashanah and Kef im Parshat Shavua, where people put up fun things that they're doing for each Chag or with each Parsha to create an experiential event, whether they're making food that relates to the Parsha or different crafts that they're making for the Parsha. Again, excellent websites. Thank you again to all the different shuls that have helped me put this together over the last, what did I say, 14 years, I think it is. And one of our local yeshivas that have helped me. Fantastic organizations. Uh, Shira mentioned that she went through her own shul. I don't know its name, but thank you to her shul. And if she's online, please tell us the name. Thank you again, Shir Shirewitz, our Rebbitzin, who's been a major sounding board for me over the years, to Rabbi Kenny Shirewitz, who's helped take this online 5 years ago and kept it online. Of course, thank you to my wife and my family for putting up with me and coming up with their own ideas. Again, thank you to Shira. Do try these at home. Please do try these at home. Don't do everything. Just do a couple things each year. Shira Shul was Kilat Darchei Noam, I think if I read that quickly. Kilat Darchei Tzion. Thank you to Darchei Tzion for advertising this. Do a couple things. Don't do everything. It just takes a couple things to make your Seder rocking. Plus, you want to save ideas for future years, both because you want to have things to do it and things to make other Seders exciting, but also as your kids get older, you want to age with them, have your Seder age with them. Please send me your name. Tell me how you found out about the workshop. I'll have your email with that, and I'll do a raffle. And one of you, if you're in America and you're close by, we can get you a Matem Moshe, or if you're in Israel, we have something else that we can get uh, transported to Israel for the Seder. Chag Kasher Sameach. May we all pray for speedy return for all the hostages that are still remaining, speedy recovery for everyone who's been injured, and of course, a speedy recovery for all those who were just called up again or who have been already called up over this last year and a half. Uh, this is my email. I had my email through multiple slides. I'll leave this up. Uh, and this is a note someone sent to me recently telling me how much they enjoyed their workshop. It's a lot to read, but I think it really kind of crystallizes one, what my family's gotten out of it, and I hope other families have gotten out of it. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. I'm happy to take questions. The floor is open.